Starting with Manchester United today, obviously the Ugarte deal looks really, really close to happening. Some Man United fans sort of online talking, maybe they're following the lead of Paul Scholes. I'm not too sure, but they kind of have this attitude of it doesn't really move the needle. It's not much of an improvement. I saw one Man United fan this week say that this is no better than a Mason Mount signing. How do you feel about this, Staffy? Do you kind of agree with that take or the Paul Scholes take that it's not really an improvement for Man United's backline?
Yeah, because I said it for weeks. I'm actually happy that Scholes said that because it proves to me one thing. There's a majority part of the fan base that move like cattle. They're like sheep. They need to hear it from a big name for them to finally agree with it. You can hear it from a simple man like me or a simple man like Lawless, and someone's gonna be like, "What do they know?" But then when someone like Scholes comes out and says it, they're like, "You know what? His word holds more weight, so maybe I'll listen to that one." He's absolutely spot on, and I'm so happy that you just said the whole Mason Mount thing because I also said that one as well. Mason Mount right now, we're using him just as a pure pressing machine in this team. He's nowhere near the player that Chelsea had. It's just like he's a clone of that player. On the ball, I don't know what he offers this team. And I mean that in a genuine way where like I'm trying to have a discussion about it. I don't know how Ten Hag is planning to use Mason Mount in this midfield. When we have strikers fit and Bruno is no longer playing the false nine, I don't see a midfield where Mount starts in every week. So when Ugarte comes in, listen, there's a lot of comparisons between Ugarte and Casemiro, which couldn't be any more wrong because they're not similar. Ugarte is a pressing machine. He wins the ball a lot because he runs a lot and he tackles a lot. He's more of a Kante than a Casemiro in terms of how he plays. And I'm looking at Mount and we use him the same way. I I don't think this is what we're missing right now. We're missing a profile that can be a little bit more deeper in the midfield, that can play in the six next to Meno or instead of Meno in certain games, where he can be paired up, I don't know, with Casemiro or whoever we're playing at that time. That is not necessarily the most mobile in terms of pressing, but maybe they can win the ball when we're being attacked in our half, so not necessarily high up the pitch. When that press gets beat, who's going to be behind the ball? And someone who's decent on the build-up, which these are all things that Ugarte does not have. That's why I have an issue with it. He comes in for the amount of money that the PSG is asking for. I struggle to find this a very good signing. Is it good to have depth? Yeah, of course. If this was like a 20, 30, even like, I don't know, I'll go as far as 40 million signing. I'll be like, it's not that bad. But more than that, I just struggle to like this signing. I really don't. You know, I don't think it moves the needle for us.
Just on you backing Paul Scholes, so you agree with Paul Scholes that Rashford is
I
a
don't
better
even know
football
his
player than
exact quote. I just heard
yeah,
that he doesn't like the signing.
yeah. But if you're backing him because it's him, he also says that Rashford's better than Sancho. Just putting it out there.
I mean, you can argue that is true, but I like Sancho more. But
I'm winding you up. Yeah, look, I understand where you're coming from, and I would love a Zubimendi. I mean, I'd love a Paul Scholes. I'd love a modern day Paul Scholes. I do get that train of thought. What is your take on it? It looks like it's going to happen fairly imminently. Lawless, that it's going to happen with a loan with an obligation to buy at around £50 million. There are some that are like Staffy that are like, they're not too sure. There are others that are very, very excited. How do you personally see it as an outsider to Man United?
I get the skepticism, and I think Man United obviously are used to and probably want those box office blockbuster signings, right? Especially, when you're trying to bridge the gap and you're looking what, the likes of Arsenal are signing, Man City have been doing. You want to try and get signings that you can say, yeah, like that's going to close the gap. This gets me excited. I think it's an upgrade on what you have. It's a loan with an obligation to buy, which means you can likely go and invest that money into other areas in this season, when it comes to strengthening the team. So I guess the deal is good because that's not going to really be factored until next season when you do sign him. So, yeah, I think he's a good player. He's a lively player. Like I said, that defensive midfield role, exactly what you want. Pick out a tackle. Like I said, it may not be that exciting sign, but I think it's an upgrade, definitely on Amrabat. So yeah, I can see why you're not jumping for joy doing backflips, but I think it will be a good signing for Man United. Like I said, I think it's sensible. I'm gonna say a sensible signing for Man United rather than an exciting one.
I disagree, man, but we'll see. You know,
Do
I
you
don't think
think
he's
it's just like going to flop? Like, or do you think that
just
he's
like
just going to be average or whatever?
I don't see what our starting midfield is when we sign him. People think he comes in and replaces Casemiro, and I'm not Casemiro's biggest fan. But even Casemiro in the first 2 games, when now that I'm not gonna lie, he looks in better shape than last season. You genuinely look at him and you can tell that he's actually lighter, so he's moving a little bit easier on the pitch. But I'm just looking at what does Ugarte do to that midfield, and I don't see a double pivot of him and Mainu playing together. I generally don't. You know, so I don't see he comes in and he starts every game. I really don't. I don't see it.
Why don't you see that? You don't see it because they can't work together, or you don't see the manager picking?
Because he's not that deep player that we need. As I said, he's a pressing player. You know, so it's like if we had a system that works very well and you're just upgrading from Mount to Ugarte, I'd hear that. I'd be like, you know what, that makes sense because we're not changing the way we play. You're upgrading a player for someone who presses better. Not necessarily presses better because Mount is very good on the press. He has some of the best pressing stats in the league.
Mount presses in a kind of, but Mount's pressing in a number 10 position. Ugarte is sitting 10, 15, 20 yards deep.
Ugarte's not a sitter, is that what I'm trying to say?
But why again? But when you watch him play, I mean, I haven't done it yet. But if we look at the heat maps of Ugarte and the heat maps of Mason Mount, they're not going to look the same, surely.
Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. Again, Mason Mount is coming out of this 11 anyways. So it's going to be, let's be honest, it's going to be Mainu and it's going to be Bruno. Now, who's the third player? If Ugarte is that third player, I don't like it. I don't like that midfield. I don't think it's going to work. I would rather, I'm not even joking. I said I would have rather signed Sanderberg than him because he would be cheaper. And in terms of what he does on the pitch, it's something that we don't have. We don't have a tall physical player that wins the ball in our half when our press gets beat. Ugarte will be good in our press. He will, like when we press as a team, he will be an important factor of it because he's a good presser. But when our press gets beat, we don't have anyone behind the ball. And that's our issue.
But that's what he's going to do. He's going to be behind the play. If you actually look, I'm just looking at his heat map now, just to look at where he touches the ball and where he wins the ball. I would say 70% of it is in his own half. So I don't understand what the issue is. I get that he isn't going to have the passing range that Paul Scholes had or Michael Carrick had sitting back deep. But what's the issue with him being the protector of the back line, winning the ball when our press is broken, being that conduit, and then in the attack, receiving the ball and then passing it off to the Brunos and the Cobbies that are better in possession? I don't see why that can't work.
Because as I said, I don't think he wins the ball for us when our press gets beat. That's what I'm trying to say. I need someone who's an anchor in that midfield. That's a profile that we didn't trust this summer.
When you say anchor, you mean someone who's really highly technically gifted on the ball. Why can't he be an anchor and win the ball back low? Why can't he win the ball back low? That's what I'm a bit confused about.
So I was always looking this summer. I really wanted a good partner for Mino, someone who makes up for what Mino doesn't have. What Mino doesn't have is a little bit of speed, a little bit of height, and a little bit of ball winning in our midfield. Okay. That's why I wanted someone like Onana as an example, the one that went to Villa.
I was about to say that, yeah. He would have been a good
I was begging for this guy all season last season. I was like, let's go in the summer and buy him. When we didn't get him, I didn't really see a lot of profiles out there that can give us that. The closest one to it, and that's the only one, as I said, that we were kind of linked with, was Sanderberg. And to be honest, he was always going to be a stopgap for this summer. Because I feel like next summer, anyways, United probably want to go for like an Adam Morton or someone like that to redo that midfield and spend big. So I'm like, okay, if we're gonna just get someone as a stopgap this summer, I don't want to spend 60 million on Ugarte. That's really what it is. So I don't think it's gonna fix our midfield moving forward. It might. Well, it's a good addition.
Where I agree with you,
it's not gonna fix it.
Where I agree with you, and I suppose this is where me and you see it differently. I don't believe our midfield's fixed by signing him. But I believe our midfield is better. Our midfield was never going to be fixed this summer, in my opinion. We have gone a long way towards fixing. I don't think it would have been sensible to fix any one area in terms of you could have gone out and spent all of our money legitimately fixing the back line across all positions, but then you don't improve anywhere else. I think it was important to help improve multiple areas, and we've done that. So that's where I agree with you. Any Man United fan that thinks midfield's fixed, sorted forever, great. But I don't think that's a disrespect to Ugarte. I think he's a good addition, but more over time is going to be needed. That is where I 100% agree with you. In other